Good evening. I am the Maven of the Eventide. Welcome to Vampire Reviews. Who put that there? The year was 1998, and comic book movies had fallen into disgraceful quagmire due to certain films that had reduced the genre to a joke. That is, until a vampire came along. What brought us from this to this? Blade, the Daywalker. The success of Blade is what directly inspired Marvel to take off with the X-Men and Spider-Man franchises. And after that, well, the floodgates opened for big-budget comic book movies that took themselves seriously.
Sure, there were a few duds along the way,
but if you ever emerge from your crypt for more than a minute, you can't help but notice that over the past 13 years, comic book movies as a serious and beloved franchise has risen to an all-time high. And it's a vampire movie we have to thank. Unique from traditional horror-style vampire films, Blade is a vampire action movie. It falls under the classic vampire hunter versus evil vampires trope, but with one important difference. This time, the hunter is a vampire too. The character of Blade originated in the Tomb of Dracula comics. In the 70s, he was a very different man from the Blade we get in this movie. He was talkative and colorful. Think Shaft versus vampires. Also, he was only around on and off as a supporting character. That is until the tragic 6 years that Marvel banished all vampires from comics. That was my birth year, Marvel. How can you not expect me to take this personally? I mean, coincidence? In '92, Marvel retconned the whole thing to blame the disappearance on Doctor Strange, but it still stings. It still stings. Anyway, after that, Blade came back, and over the next couple of years, he really started coming into his own, and it was this that inspired David Goyer to team up with Stephen Norrington to make a movie. Even though Blade had acquired a new, edgier look, he needed to be further revamped for the late 90s. Goyer was inspired by the first Batman films, and, as we know, in the 90s, brooding, self-loathing vampires were all the rage. And so Blade got a personality overhaul and re-emerged as the Daywalker. Your friendly neighborhood vampire. Like in the comics, his mother was bitten by a vampire as she was giving birth to him. Only now, instead of merely being a human who's immune to vampire bites and has a sixth sense when supernatural creatures are near, he is officially part vampire, part human. He possesses all the vampire's supernatural strengths, but none of their weaknesses except for the thirst for blood. He takes care of this weakness with the help of a serum, and devotes his life to destroying all vampires as revenge for what happened to his mother.
There are worse things out tonight than vampires.
like what?
Like me.
Like that's hard. No one saw that, right? And this character change was genius. It continued the trend of the vigilante good guy vampire hunter, while solving the problem of how to explain a vampire who doesn't just treat humans as food. Blade the Daywalker is the only one of his kind, and his human half resists succumbing to the evil urges that remain in the vampire antagonists. He has a soul. He's a stoic, sullen, brooding, black-clad, utility-belted, be-grappling-hooked vigilante of the night. He's a strong, silent type. He kicks ass, but don't think he'll bother to take any names. He even has his own Alfred.
You've met Blade.
Yeah, my name's Blade, and I just conveniently happen to be holding a blade in case you're wondering why they call me that. No, it's not my iconic sword, but that didn't make sense in this shot, so it's just my S-blade. It's a good thing I had this lying around to hold when I got introduced, otherwise it would have been really awkward, because I was holding a spatula before. You've already met Whisk. You've already met Potato. You've already met Hairbrush.
Oh, Lindsay, hold this. My name is not Chick. Hate that.
Seriously, why is he holding that? Did he think he'd have to cut a bitch? Did he think he wouldn't be able to handle her with his bare hands? Well, this is Karen. She's our everyman who's coincidentally thrust into Blade's world. a hematologist that Blade happens to rescue from a vampire attack at the hospital. He attempts to cure her from the bite, and she tags along for the rest of the movie to represent the audience and ask our questions for us as the strange new environment is unfolding.
I have to stick with you.
Also, it's her contribution of using her medical knowledge to add EDTA to Blade's arsenal that ends up providing the weapon that saves the day at the climax of the film. Now, the thing I love about the Karen character is that even though she's played by a young, sexy lady, she does not serve as a love interest for Blade. I will concede that you could say there is sexual tension between them. Well, that is, Wesley Snipes claims he encouraged the casting of a black actress instead of a white one as they originally intended for the sake of allowing sexual tension to exist. What are you saying, Wesley Snipes? White women aren't just automatically accepted as having sexual tension with black men? Don't listen to him, Blackula. We'll be together someday. But anyway, if there is tension, it's so subtle that you need an exploding microscope to see it. He has more sexual tension with his vampire mom than with Karen. In either way, there's no actual romance between these two. The movie doesn't try to shoehorn it in. As far as we know, Blade doesn't even see her as a woman. They bond and their characters grow, but Blade's not about that. He's a man with a mission. Now, I'm not complaining about that. I think it's awesome. How often do we get to see a token chick character in an action film not be a love interest? She was written as a character first who just happened to be female. Way to go, movie! You could completely replace her with a Robin-style brainy teenage boy psychic character and nothing would have needed to be changed. But she just happens to be a hot chick. Girl power. Now, all that said, she is unfortunately not a very interesting character. She's bland, boring, and one note through most of the film. Look at her. She's terrified right now. But her hair looks great. I wonder if the filmmakers were afraid of taking any risks with her character or giving her any personality because they were trying too hard to avoid cliches. There are other personality types that exist, you know. Or did they just not care? Anyway, for all the good I can say about the idea behind the Karen character, in practice she pretty much remains a token and a plot device. But now, let's take a look at our vampires. This film is a good example of the phenomenon I call the vampire mafia.
Blade.
We see this a lot these days, but it wasn't always this way. Vampires used to be loners and Byronic anti-heroes, but starting around 50 years ago with the advances in technology, the idea of one lone romantic monster wasn't scary to audiences anymore. And so the concept of vampire societies began to be explored. They developed into social groups with hierarchies, gangs where affiliations provide their identities, and they serve as flunkies with strength in numbers. And so, in a reverse of the old-fashioned be-pitchforked mob versus one monster, it is now the lone hunter who fights against the masses. And these vampires are scumbags. Quite the opposite of certain romantic vampires that have become popular. Blade has been hunting these vampires all his life, and they've been trying just as hard to eliminate him. As the only daywalker in a world where the vampire mafia owns the police and politicians, he poses the only real threat against them. But considering all it takes to make a new vampire is one bite on a human, it is difficult to imagine Blade's one-man war will ever be completely successful, no matter how much ass he kicks. This issue is addressed in the sequels, but the trilogy as a whole is a subject for another night. For now, our main antagonist is Deacon Frost, played here by the dwarf. Like in the comics, Frost is the vampire who bit Blade's mother. But his character here is also revamped and updated for the 90s. Now he's young and sassy, and our cliche one power-hungry vampire that shuns the old ways and wants to break the masquerade and is therefore even more evil than the vampire mafia.
Maybe it's time we forgot about discretion. We should be ruling the humans, not running around making back-alley treaties with them. For fuck's sake, these people are our food, not our allies.
You're out of line, Frost.
Am I?
Honestly, how is he the first vampire to ever feel this way?
Or maybe I'm just the first to say out loud what we've all been thinking.
Anyway, he's a man with a plan, and what he wants is to decode the ancient pages of the Book of Erebus, to unlock the ritual that will transform him into the blood god La Magra. Supposedly, this will release the blood tide and turn all humans in the world into vampires. Wait, Does he want to turn all the humans in the world into vampires, or does he want to rule them? Because if he turns all the humans in the world into vampires, who's left for him to rule? Now, I'm not just talking about the plot hole of who's left for them to eat. That's covered in a deleted scene. Fine, but what's the point of being on the top of the food chain if there's no one left to lord over? I mean, if I were an upstart, they should be treating us like gods, vampire. I would want some humans left to cower at my feet. I mean, sure, maybe the other vampires would cower at his feet, but then what's in it for them? What do they get out of it? Why are they helping him?
We're gonna be gods.
Of course we are. Yeah!
No, you're not! Your buddy is, and you'll be left with no one except those random humans that are left that you'll be able to eat. And why don't those ones get changed by the blood tide? Well, you know what? Forget the plot holes. The point is that once Frost translates the Dead Sea Scrolls here, he learns that the blood of a Daywalker is the key to unleashing the god. And of course, there's only one Daywalker in the world, and it just so happens to be the son of the woman Frost himself bit when she was in labor, and is now his vampire girlfriend. What a small world! Coincidence? Or destiny? So, to lure Blade into his trap, Frost attacks Blade's father figure / weapons designer and kidnaps Karen. Blade has a Zen breakdown sequence. I'm so on the road to enlightenment right now. And then he goes in, guns blazing, to rescue Karen and put an end to Frost's plan. This looks familiar. Oh yeah! But Blade did it first. It was the style at the time. And it doesn't seem any more effective against vampires than Keanu the One Reeves. Not that I've ever tested it out or anything. Anyway, Blade discovers his mother, now a vampire, in Frost's room, and it's distraction enough for Frost to capture him. Frost completes the ceremony and becomes La Magra. Blade. But with a little help from Karen, Blade... Blade. Seriously, how does she survive this? Isn't that enough? Blade? Blade? Blade, she's not going to be able to walk after losing that much blood. Oh, never mind. Apparently she's fine. So, yeah. With her help, Blade kills his mother and the rest of the vampires. And then defeats Frost in a martial arts sword fight. You know, like vampires traditionally have. As the sun comes up over empty-streeted, nondescript, nameless city, Karen offers to help Blade find a cure.
If I'm gonna kill you.
You keep your cure. There's still a war going on, and I have a job to do.
And he's learned to accept himself for what he is. 50% vampire, 50% human, 100% badass. 100% what audiences came to see. Quite the opposite of bat nipples over here. What's this? Sequel hints? Well, it was the third highest grossing vampire movie of its time. Audiences loved it, and the Blade trilogy took off. This genius new Batman-esque proto-Matrix version of Blade was so popular that the comic book version was changed to incorporate it. And the movie was so successful that it convinced the boys at Marvel to take off with the Spider-Man and X-Men franchises. And after the success of those movies, well, we all know what's happened since then. I am the Maven of the Eventide. And vampires touch us in more ways than you may realize. Hey! What was that for?
Dude, stop leaving garlic all over my room. It smells like a goddamn Olive Garden in there.
Well, I'm only doing it for your protection.
Well, stop. It's fangirly and weird and it smells bad.
Hey, Lisa, can you stop nailing a cross above my bed? I'm Jewish.
Who are you?
I am your roommate. I have lived here for some time.